Hi, today I'm going to show you how to Arduino mode a Guitar Hero 3 guitar. This mode makes the guitar wired, so you don't have to rely on Wii related stuff anymore, like Bluetooth, batteries, remotes, and so on. It also increases the polling rate, which is how many times the controller sends an update to the game, and this helps for very fast songs. In my case, I modded it mainly to make it wired and for the convenience it offers. This video is going to be a bit long, as I will explain every single detail, show how to make measurements, solder everything one by one to really show how it's done. Now, before we begin, here's a little disclaimer that this mod will make you unsolder or cut wires from the original motherboard, which is on the center of the guitar. And once the cables are cut, the guitar is unusable and difficult to revert back. So just with like every project, there's a probability that the mod fails for different reasons. So by doing this mod, you acknowledge this probability and you do it at your own risk. Also, I'm going to use sharp tools like scissors and hot tools like my soldering iron. So I will take, and you will have to also take every necessary safety step to not harm yourself during the process. So I will not be responsible for broken guitars or injuries. Now that this is out of the way, let's make a list of what you're going to need for the mod. So first of all, you will need a soldering iron, like this one. A very basic one will do the trick. With that, you will also need some tin solder. You will also need some wires, like the ones I have here. Here I have some Arduino jumper wires that have a male-to-male connection, like this. And I also have a roll of different colored wires here. You will also need some connectors like this. These are male to female connectors. I will solder these to the Arduino card, and I'm doing it like that so I don't solder any wires directly onto the Arduino board. This will be better if the board fails at some point. I would just have to unplug the wires from it and replace the board. You will also need some shrink tubes. This will help make the solder joints cleaner and also help the contacts not touching each other. When the mod is done, you will see that a lot of cables touch each other, and you will also need a lighter to heat it so it shrinks. You will also need the Arduino card itself. Here it is. It's very tiny. I bought the ones that Pixel GH used in their guide. These cards are called Pro Micro and they look like this. You can find them by searching for Pro Micro on Amazon. They don't look like they are Arduino branded. It looks more like a bootleg, but I've done several mods with these and none failed for now, so this is fine. To plug in this card, you will also need a micro USB to USB cable. I use a very basic red one. I use 2 meters, but you can go for 3 or 1 depending on your needs. But keep in mind that some of the length will be wasted in the guitar body. Also, in case your model isn't exactly like mine, which happens because I have other GH3 guitars which are not the same regarding the inside, you will need a multimeter like this to make some measurements. In the first part of the mod, I will show you how to use this to figure out which wire does what. For example, which cable is the start button, which one is the green fret, and so on. So for this, you will also need a Wii remote, like this one, that will be connected to a console or a computer. It is needed to provide power to the guitar while you measure. You will also need some screwdrivers. You can get a very basic precision screwdriver kit to open and close back the guitar. There are 2 types of screws we are dealing with. The body of the guitar uses Torx 10 screws, and there are 4 neck screws, which are Phillips head. For these ones, I use a PH0 bit. And the Phillips bit will also be needed to remove the RG11 port from the guitar. It's not used, and the hole left will allow the USB cable to pass through. I also suggest you get a third hand like this. It will help a lot with soldering because you can hold the wires with this. That's all we need for the mod. So now I will make some space because I will bring up the guitar on the table. So here's the guitar. It's a Wii Les Paul, which was shipped with Guitar Hero 3. I think this is the most common guitar that people sell online and the one that people choose to mod the most. So first, I need to remove the neck. To do so, I pull on this like this. And then I hold it and the neck just slides out of the guitar. Then you need to remove the faceplate. So to do so, make sure it is unlocked on the back of the guitar here, like this. Now to remove it, just pull it from the neck. There are no screws, only plastic clips, but sometimes they are very tight, and for some guitars I had to pull it quite hard for it to come off. If this is the case with yours, you can wiggle it around, but take your time as you don't want to break any clips. As you can see, mine is quite hard as well to pull. There we go. Nothing's broken despite the noise it made. On some models, you have all the screws underneath the faceplate, but it's not my case. Here, my screws are on the back of the guitar, here. Unscrew every screw and keep them in a place you won't lose them. All these T10 screws are the same size and length, so you don't have to worry about which one goes in which hole. You can put them all together. And same for these 4 neck screws here. They are all the same size. Also, don't forget that there is a screw under the warranty sticker that you have to remove if it's not already removed. And once every screw is removed, you can just separate the body of the guitar in two. It should come apart very easily, like this. Just pull on it, and this here, we won't need it because there is nothing interesting on it. So just put it aside. We are left with this part of the body. When putting it down on the table, be careful of the whammy bar here, because don't push too hard, because you don't want to break the little plastic thing here that makes it work. Unfortunately, mine is already broken, which is quite common with old guitars like this, but I think I can repair it at some point. Alright, so let's make a quick tour of the guitar and what's inside. On the center here, there is the motherboard where everything is connected. Here and here are the 2 strum switches. Here is the fret connector. We have 6 points of solder, which is the 5 frets and a ground connector. Here is the joystick board, which has a VCC, which gives the 3.3 volt power, X-axis, Y-axis, and the ground. Here is the Wii connector. We won't touch anything here, we won't even cut it or anything, because there is enough space here in the guitar for it to stay. Here is the start and select board, which has the start, select, and the ground. These 2 points here are the RG11 connector, which we will just remove it, as it is not used here. And here is the whammy connections, which has a VCC 3.3 volts, a ground, and the potentiometer pin, which helps the guitar know that you are moving the whammy bar. Now I will explain how to make measurements in order to determine which pin does what on everything. So here I highly suggest you open Paint on your computer, or you take a sheet of paper with a pen to draw a little schematic to remember which cable does what. This will be very important because when we are going to solder, we have to remember everything, because then we will have to plug it all to the Arduino board. So to measure everything, just take your multimeter. I have here my probes. I'm putting the red one into the V port and my black probe on the COM port. So here I put it on 20 because our measurements will not exceed 3.3 volts. I'm going to plug this in so it gives power to the whole guitar. There we go. Now we have to determine how everything here is wired. My black probe will be mainly used to know which pin is the ground pin, as is it connected to the COM port of my multimeter. But how do we know which one is which? This is actually quite simple. So for instance here, if we take the strum switches, they have 2 pins each. One is the strum action and the other one is the ground. So I will place my probe one on each pin. So here it gives a value, but as you can see, the value is negative. I hope you can see it properly on the camera. So if I put it like this, the value is negative, which means I have my red probe on the ground, because when my black probe is on the ground, the value will be positive like this. So here this means that for this strum switch, the ground is the exterior pin and the strum action is the interior one. So if I assume that this is the same for the second, I'm going to directly put my black probe on the exterior side pin. And here we also get a positive value. So we have figured out the strum switches. I will take a little note of it on my computer so I don't forget. Now, if I want to know here the frets connector, if I want to know which one is which, I will have to plug the neck again. I just have to plug it so it makes enough contact with the little gold pins. Like this. So here I have to find which one is the ground. So the neck should be powered by the Wii remote. I'm going to place my red probe on the first one. And then I will check each of these pins until I get a reading. 0, 0, 0. All right. So now I get a reading here, 3.19. This is a positive value, so this means that the ground is this pin on the bottom here. Now to figure out which fret are the other pins, I need to hold. So we know that the last pin is ground, so I need to hold it like I did, like this. And here, when we press the right fret, the voltage here will drop to 0. So I'm going to press on the green fret and it drops to 0. If I release it, it goes back to 3.1. I press it again, it drops to 0. So it means that the very first pin here is the green fret. Now I will put my probe on the second pin this is kind of hard to hold with one hand, but right. So I have my probe, my red probe on the second pin. I'm going to assume that everything is in order, so I will push the red fret now and it drops to 0. So yeah, the second pin here is the red fret. And I'm pretty sure from here the third one will be the yellow one. Yeah. Here I have my red probe on the third pin, and when I press yellow, it drops to 0. The next one will surely be the blue one. Yes, here I'm pressing on the blue with my red probe on the fourth pin, and the fifth pin here, I have my red probe on it, and if I press orange, it drops to 0. So here we figured out the frets, which the very first pin is green, the second one is red, then yellow, blue, orange, and ground. So once this is done, I can just remove the neck here. For the joystick board, we will do kinda the same thing. I'm kinda lucky because everything is labeled on the board. I can see here ground, VCC, Y, and X. But in case yours it isn't labeled, I will still show you how to measure it. So this process is the same. We have to find which pin is ground. So I will place my black probe, let's say here. All right, here I get 1.5 on the first one. Here I get a negative value of 1.5. Right, I'm just moving around, trying to figure out the first thing we can search for is the VCC pin. So when we will have our black probe on the ground and our red one on the VCC, the multimeter should show a 3 point something positive value. So here it's 1.6. All right, 3.24, which means that here I have found the ground and the VCC pin. So the VCC is the top one here. I have my red probe on, and the ground pin is the third one. I will make a note of that. All right, so now we know that the ground is the third one and the VCC is the very top one. This means that we only have X and Y axis to figure out here. So the second and the fourth one will be one of those. So if I hold the ground here and my red probe on the fourth pin, I should get a value, but it's kind of hard. I saw something. Here we get 1.8. So to know if it is X or Y axis, I have to hold it with the value displayed, which will be hard. All right, so I'm going to move the joystick horizontally, and if the 1.6 value moves, it means that we have found our x-axis. All right, so here I'm moving the joystick horizontally, and the value changes a lot. If I move it vertically, it doesn't change. So this means that the fourth pin here is the x-axis, and the second is the last one that remains, so we can assume that it's the y-axis. Now, there is the Wii connector, which we won't touch at all. There is here the start and select. And to figure out, we have to basically do the very same thing. We have to find which pin is ground. So I put my black probe on, let's say, the first one. All right, so here I have 3.1, which is a positive value. And if I put my red probe on the second pin, we also have 3.1 as a positive value. So this means that this top connector here is the ground. So if I follow the wire here, it goes on the top as well, I think. Yes. So here I will take a note that this top wire here is the ground. Now to figure out which is start and which is select, I just hold, let's say, the third pin and the ground. And just like for the fret connectors, when I push the right button, the value will drop to 0. Here I'm pressing the start button and nothing happens. And when I press the select button, the value drops to 0. So here we can assume that this pin right here is the select button, which goes here. So only the start button remains, so the start button will be the center one. Now there is only the whammy bar to figure out. I will unscrew this. It will help me see better the cables. So to unscrew this, you can take the very same Phillips head screw that you used for the neck screws of the guitar. All right, so here it's the same method, we will have to find which pin is the ground pin. So here I get a negative 3.2 volts, which means that I found the VCC and ground, but my probes are not placed properly. So if I invert them here, I get a positive 3.2 value, which means that ground is this pin right here. I have my black probe on, and VCC is the pin on the right here. So I'm following the wire here. So ground is on the right of my whammy bar. VCC is here. So this is this cable. If I follow it, it goes on the very left of the whammy. There is only one cable left, which is the potentiometer of the whammy here. If I put my probe on it, it reads 2 point something. And I have the whammy down. If I lift it and make my my measurement again, it should show a different value, 1.6. And just like for the joystick, if the whammy moves, the value should move as well. So as you can see here, I'm putting back the guitar on the table and the value changes. So this means that this middle pin is the whammy potentiometer. I made a note for this on my computer as well. So now we have everything figured out. We know which wire goes where for every cable. It's time to unplug this now that the board doesn't need power anymore. All right, so the measurements part of the video is done here. Now that we have everything figured out here, we can also turn this off and put it aside. We won't need it anymore. I'm going to need my wires because the next part is the soldering. So the male-to-male jumper wires will be used for everything except for ground and VCC. That's because on the Arduino board itself, there are common grounds and analog grounds. The common ground pin of the board will be used for the ground of the frets, the strum switches, and start and select button. The analog ground pin of the board will be used for the joystick and the whammy bar grounds. For convenience, I will link these grounds together respectively and then connect them to a single wire like this, and then plug it on the board. So we will have the 4 not analog grounds together and then into the board, and the 2 analog grounds for the whammy and joystick, which we will then plug into the analog grounds of the board. And same goes for the VCC. We have the joystick board and the whammy that both got a VCC wire. And the Arduino board only has one, so we will link this VCC together as well. So now that we have everything figured out, it's time to remove all the connections from the central board, except for the Wii connector. We don't touch this one. This is the point of no return. This is where you can still say, I'm not ready to do this, and just put your guitar back together and make it. We didn't touch anything yet, but once we cut the cables, there is the probability that something goes wrong, or as I said in the beginning of the video. So if you want to proceed, like I will do, I will remove all the cables. So depending on the guitar you have, these may be just soldered here like this, but on other guitars there is glue as well. So unfortunately here on this particular guitar there is solder and glue. So what I suggest you do if you don't have glue under is you unsolder everything, and then while you are unsoldering, you just pull the wires and they come right through. It will be much more clean than if you just cut it, but as on my guitar there is glue everywhere, I will have no choice but to cut the wires from under the board. I will try to cut them as cleanly as possible. So for this I will need scissors. I have these tiny scissors or these big ones. I think I will try to do it with the tiny ones first by taking my time. As you can see here, I separated the cables by cutting in the sleeve. This will be helpful when I have to solder one by one cables to this. I will do this for every cable here. As I mentioned, be very careful here because you don't want to cut the cable itself. You just cut between them like this. And then you can pull on it. Like this with your fingers. Here is the neck connector. As you can see, this is the one that has the shortest cable length. So this is the one that needs the most patience and care, because we need to separate the little wires. So I will be using the very same method with my scissors, but be very careful not to take it apart, or I mean, unsolder this by pulling on it, or this one really needs to be done with a lot of care. Now that each of these cables is separated, we will have to cut a bit more in the white sleeve, because we need to expose the wire so afterwards we can solder it. So this is also something that requires patience, because if you don't do it properly, you will have to cut the cable, which will shorten the length. And for this connector, we don't have enough length to go with. So here I'm just trying to cut the white sleeve on each side. Without cutting the cable. This is the hardest part, I think, because on the other connector the wires are long enough, so here I could just pull on it. It's cut enough, but I don't want to pull on the solder, so I will try to see if I will try to find something to hold the cable so I can pull on the sleeve, but without damaging the solder. I can try to hold it with this, but this is big. I don't know if this will work. I have to be very careful. All right. So this left a little mark on the connector. Don't know if I can show you. So yeah, we need the cable to be nude like this. I think it's fine. I will do the other ones the same way, but just I have to be very patient. So this is done. I think I have made no damage here. So this is what it should look like when it's finished. So now we have to do the same for all the other cables. It will be much easier because I don't have to hold them with these. I just can hold it with my hand and pull on it. I still have to be careful not to tear anything apart, but Now we have everything cut. So what's left to do is to solder each one of them to our wires here. So let's get to soldering. Now I'm going to solder everything that is not ground or VCC. That means everything that will be plugged directly into the Arduino board. So I will use these wires, which have a male-to-male connection. So this will be a long part because soldering properly takes time and there are many wires we have to do. So this will be a long part of the video where I just solder everything without talking. So if you know already how to do everything, you can skip this whole part, but I will still keep it in the video in case it is needed for someone. Now plug your soldering iron. I will plug mine here. Wait for it to heat and then you will be ready to begin the solder. And when it will be done, we will move on to the next part of the video. Now for neck connector, the only wire left is the ground pin. So as I will be linking together all the analog and not analog pins, I will solder it to just a black wire without a male connection at the end. Now that this connector is done, the hardest part is done. This is the most difficult thing to do in the mods, so yeah, I'm happy with the result. Everything is fine. And now we are ready to continue. I will continue with soldering grounds for the non-analog grounds. This means I have to do the strum switches and the start and select button. So let's do this. Now, when you are here, it means that the most difficult is done because everything on the guitar is soldered properly. So, as you can see, it takes a bit of time, but now everything is fine here regarding the guitar. But don't unplug your soldering iron just yet because we have now the Arduino soldering to do with the male to female connectors. Now you can put your guitar aside because we won't need it for now. Alright, so here is the Arduino card. And here I also have my male to female connectors. Each side of the card has 12 connectors. And as you can see here on this, there is a lot more. Fortunately, it's easy to cut. I'm going to cut it with these scissors. So be very careful here because these little golden pins here, they can fly away when you cut. So you have to protect your eyes to avoid injury. You can use safety glasses or something similar to this. Now that I have 12 of each, I need to solder them to the board like this. Now you will have to solder each one of these little connectors here. Be careful because you don't want any of them touching each other. So you will have to be precise and don't use too much solder. Now that this is done, you don't need your soldering iron anymore. We have soldered everything we needed to, so you can just unplug it. Now bring your guitar back to the table because we will need to plug everything. So here you have to plug it just like on this image. So this is what I'm going to do right now. Now that everything is plugged into the board, take your micro USB cable and you just have to plug it in. Like this. And then we will do a bit more of cable management, but for now it's not very important. And we will use this hole here left by the RG11 port to get the cable through. I also suggest once we will be done that you tie a knot here, so if you pull on the cable it won't pull on the connector itself. So now I'll be right back on the computer to do the software part of the mod. So now that you have plugged your card in, it should show up as Arduino Leonardo. If this is the first time you plug this in, Windows will show the fact that it's configuring it just like it does with every new hardware you plug in your computer. So there are two ways you can configure your card. There is Sanjay software, which makes the guitar an X input device and allows it to be configured with a graphical interface, but for some reason it never worked for me. Each time I tried to use it, the software would just freeze when uploading the configuration to the card, and I had to end the process, launch it again, and use the revert to Arduino function for my card because it would go on rescue mode. I don't know why it happens, so I am using the method pixelgh used in their mod, which always worked flawlessly for me. But if you want to try with Sanjay software, you can, but I would not recommend it. Maybe it's because this card I'm using is not Arduino branded, but anyway, I think the end result is the same because I never had any issues. So first of all, you will need to download the Arduino IDE. It's available on their website. I will have the link in the description. You will also need the joystick library and the code to upload to the card, which will also be linked in the description. So first thing you have to do is to extract the Arduino IDE here, and then you can launch it. The first time it launches, it may request administrator permissions because it has some drivers to install. So if this is the case, you can say yes to the prompt. I already have the code loaded here because it's not the first time, but you should have an empty sketch like this, which only shows the very basic functions of the Arduino code. So the first thing we have to do here is go to Sketch, include library, then add zip library. So when you click on this, then you will have to go and select the Arduino joystick library. It will import it into the software by placing it to your documents folder. And then you have this generic Arduino tar.zip to extract. This is the little code that pixelgh wrote. I already have the I know extension linked to the Arduino, so I can just make a double click on it and it will open. But you can also go to File, Open, and then go and select the INO file that was extracted. So here you have the INO code and the joystick.h. So these two should both load when you select the INO file. Here you have to select your board. Here it should show up as Arduino Leonardo. Then you can just go to Sketch and upload. It opens this output console. Here it says uploading, and then when it says done uploading on the bottom right, it means that everything is fine and the code was successfully uploaded to the Arduino card. Now, to test if everything is fine, there is a Windows utility. You just have to open a start menu and type in joy.cpl, and then you press enter. This should show up here, and you see there is our Arduino Leonardo. If you click on properties here, so now we can test that everything works. So take back your guitar. It should still be opened. You can slide the neck in, just like when we made the measurements. Now, if everything is configured correctly, 1 is the green fret. I'm pressing it right now. 2 is red. 3 is yellow. 4 is blue. And 5 is orange. So the neck works. So that's great. Now, strum up is 6. Strum down is 7. Start button is 8 and select button is 9. So here all of our buttons work, and as you can see there is the X rotation thing, which is the whammy bar. So here I'm testing it and it works. The only thing that this code doesn't support is the joystick. I don't really know why, because my coding skills aren't great enough to read and really understand how the code works. But PixelGH also mentioned it in their guide that the joystick doesn't work here with this code, but if you have the skills to add the missing code for it, you can do it. But for me, it's no big deal, as I never ever used it. So here we tested with this that everything works great. Now the only thing left to do is to put back the guitar together, screw everything back, and then we can go to Clone Hero and make the configuration it needs. So I will do that now, put everything back together, and then I will show how to configure everything in Clone Hero. All right, now I've put my guitar back together. So we are ready to install Clone Hero. So you can download the game for free on their website. I will also link it in the description. And when you download it, you will have this setup here. You just have to run it. In my case, I will install it for all users. You can change where the game is if you want. I will leave it here, it's fine. You can select here typical installation or portable mode. The difference between the two is that with the typical installations, the game files will be in the folder you selected on the step before this one, and the custom content you will have in the game, like highways, backgrounds and such, will be in the My Documents Clone Hero folder. But if you select portable mode, everything will be in the same folder. So I'm fine with the typical installation. Let's create a shortcut here, and then you just install the game. Once this is done, I will choose to launch the game right now. Right, so now you are greeted with this page here. So the first thing we have to do is to map the controls of the guitar. So as you can see here, it says press space for controls. So here is the control settings. Here you can see that as assigned controllers, I have my Arduino Leonardo guitar. If you have other controllers plugged into your computer, it is possible that for player 1, you won't have this one assigned. So you just have to click, if this is the case, on assign controller and then press any button on the guitar and it will assign the Arduino Leonardo, which is our guitar. So here we just have to configure what we want. As we play the guitar, for instance, we won't need the kick or cymbals or anything. So green, here you just click there and you press the green. Same for red, yellow, blue, orange. And then we have the strum up, strum down, start, select button here. We don't have tilt, and we have the whammy. So here you just click here and you move the whammy around after the... Oh. All right, for some reasons it doesn't work here. I don't know why. So yeah, my whammy doesn't work, but the spring is broken already. So yeah, maybe, you know, it's just broken or not functioning properly. But earlier we saw on the joy.cpl that the axis was moving. So I won't investigate really further here for now, at least, because I would have to open the guitar back again and check maybe that the solder is done properly or anything. So yeah, it doesn't matter for now. So now that you have everything mapped, you just have to press start and you can start playing with your brand new modded guitar. One very important thing to do here is go to settings. You have to, you know, calibrate. I won't do this for now, but regarding the guitar, one very important thing is to adjust the pull rate. So the pull rate of the guitar, the code we put in the guitar, tells it to send every millisecond an update to the game. So here we have to crank it all the way to 1000. And also in the video section here, try to have the frame rate as high as the polling rate. For example, here I can try to go to 1000. You can also show the FPS in game. I think with my current computer, I won't have nowhere near 1000 frames per second. In case you have to add songs, you can manage song path to select on your computer where your songs are, and then you can perform a scan when this is done. I won't bother with this right now because the game comes with some songs already. You can play in quick play. And you can already see that our guitar works. Now you can play whatever you want. and it should just work. Yeah, so I'm playing on my desk here, so obviously it's very bad, but you can see that the guitar works, everything works well except my whammy, but you know, I will have to check later, but yeah. So basically that's the end of this very long video, but everything works. Now you have a modded guitar. You can basically plug in any computer, just go to the controls and it works. I also know that this controller, this mod, works with Guitar Hero World Tour Definitive Edition, which is a World Tour mod where you can have other songs, other bandmates and everything. I know that Asai played a lot of this mod, so yeah, this mod works with this guitar, but I don't know if it works with like modded consoles. If you have a modded Xbox 360 with some Rock Band or anything on it, I don't know if it works because I don't have one. I mostly play Clone Heroes, so yeah, that's the end. Thanks for watching. If you have questions or some things I was not clear enough about, don't hesitate to put them in the comments, and have a nice day. Bye.